No warning, no scream, no struggle anyone ever heard. Just a woman in a forest that swallowed her whole. Before we continue, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Take a moment to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This is Crime Hall. The story begins on September 14, 1994, 26-year-old Emily Carter stepped onto a rain-soaked trail inside Redwood Crest National Reserve, a vast protected wilderness along the northern California coast. She never came back. At the time, her disappearance barely made the news. Another missing hiker, another name added to a growing list of people who vanished inside America's national parks. But 3 years later, something was found that would turn her case into one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries ever recorded. Something that should not have been there. Something hanging. Emily Carter was a graduate student in ecological conservation, specializing in forest regeneration. Friends described her as calm, methodical, and almost obsessively prepared. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. She wasn't lost in life. Hiking wasn't a hobby. It was her second language. She kept laminated maps in her backpack, marked with alternate routes and emergency exit points. She carried a compass, flares, water purification tablets, and a handheld GPS device, rare equipment for hikers in the early 1990s. Despite repeated warnings from her parents and close friends, Emily preferred hiking alone. She believed solitude sharpened awareness, and in most places, she was right. Redwood Crest National Reserve spans over 4,000 square kilometers of rugged coastal mountains, fog-drenched valleys, and some of the oldest trees on Earth. Certain redwoods inside the park are estimated to be over 1,200 years old, towering more than 90 meters high. Sunlight rarely touches the forest floor. Even during the day, the light beneath the canopy feels dim, green, filtered, distorted. Locals often describe the forest as quiet in the wrong way. On September 14th, Emily registered at the park's visitor center, lugging a 4-day solo hike along the North Elk Basin Loop, a moderately trafficked trail winding through dense forest and elevated ridge lines. She told the rangers she planned to return by the morning of September 18th. She packed supplies for 7 days, just in case. Multiple hikers later confirmed seeing Emily on the trail during the first day. She was smiling, relaxed, taking photographs. At approximately 4:40 p.m., one couple recalled passing her near a fork where the trail split. One path descended toward Elk Basin River. The other climbed toward Mistfall Ridge, a steeper, less traveled route. Emily was seen standing at the junction, studying her map. That was the last time anyone ever saw her alive. When September 18th came and went, Emily's car was still parked at the trailhead. By sunset, rangers initiated a search. By morning, it had become a full-scale operation. Over 70 people were deployed. Park rangers, volunteer rescue teams, trained tracking dogs, and aerial units. The official trail was combed inch by inch. Nothing. No footprints. No campsite remains. No discarded gear. The tracking dogs followed Emily's scent cleanly for nearly 9 kilometers, until reaching the same trail junction where she was last seen. Then, abruptly, the trail stopped. Not faded, not scattered, stopped. Handlers later described the dogs' behavior as disturbed. They circled the junction repeatedly, refused to advance, whined, pulled back against their leash. One handler with over 25 years of experience stated he had never seen scent dogs behave that way unless something unnatural had occurred. 2 days into the search, a volunteer spotted something tangled in thick undergrowth along the ridge trail. A small piece of dark green fabric snagged nearly a meter off the ground. It matched the outer layer of Emily's hiking jacket. Fiber analysis later confirmed it was hers. That was it. That single fragment became the only physical evidence recovered. During the entire operation, for 16 days, teams searched ravines, caves, riverbeds, and sinkholes. Helicopters scanned the canopy. Divers searched deep river bends. Climbers inspected cliffs and unstable slopes. Nothing. No body. No backpack. No blood. Eventually, the search was called off. Emily Carter was officially classified as missing. Just another case. Or so it seemed. Emily hadn't died in the forest. She hadn't fallen. She hadn't been attacked by an animal. She hadn't disappeared voluntarily. She was alive, and she would remain alive for almost 3 more years. For the next 3 years, Emily Carter existed only as a memory, a photograph taped to ranger station walls, a fading missing person poster in nearby towns, a name repeated once a year in local newspapers. To the outside world, she was presumed dead, but the truth was far worse. In the weeks after the official search ended, Emily's parents refused to accept the outcome. They returned to the park repeatedly, accompanied by volunteers and a private investigator. They hired using their life savings. They walked unofficial trails. They searched unmarked ravines. They camped in places rangers warned them to avoid. Nothing surfaced. No sign that Emily had ever moved beyond that trail junction. The forest offered no answers, only silence. By early 1995, law enforcement shifted the case from active rescue to investigative review. That's when the theories began. Statistically, this explanation fit. Hikers often become disoriented. Falls are common. Hypothermia kills quietly. Investigators believed Emily may have slipped from a ridge, fallen into a ravine, or wandered far from marked paths before succumbing to exposure. But there were problems. No disturbed vegetation, no torn gear, no scent beyond the trail junction. Even experienced hikers leave traces when they panic. Emily left none. The park was home to black bears and mountain lions, though attacks were extremely rare. And yet, no blood, no drag marks, no torn clothing. Predator attacks are violent. This wasn't. This was the theory no one wanted to say out loud. That Emily encountered another person, someone who didn't register, someone who knew the forest better than she did. Detectives reviewed every hiker who entered the park that week. They interviewed staff, seasonal workers, nearby residents. A handful of names stood out. One person attracted particular attention. Thomas Ridley, a 45-year-old trapper and freelance survival instructor living near the park boundary. He'd been cited twice for illegal trapping inside protected zones. He admitted being in the park the day Emily disappeared, but his alibi held. Multiple witnesses placed him nearly 30 kilometers away. Guiding a small group of students, his cabin was searched. Knives, ropes, animal pelts, nothing illegal, nothing incriminating. Still, something about him unsettled investigators. And yet, no evidence. Another name quietly entered the case file. Mark Holloway, a park ranger with nearly a decade of experience. Highly skilled, respected, reclusive, colleagues described him as polite but distant. During the investigation, it emerged that for years earlier, a female tourist had filed a complaint, accusing him of inappropriate behavior during a solo patrol. The complaint was dismissed. No witnesses, no proof. Holloway denied ever encountering Emily and provided patrol logs placing him in a coastal zone over 60 kilometers away that day. Video timestamps supported his account. Once again, suspicion without substance. Detectives examined Emily's life from every angle. Bank accounts, emails, phone records. Nothing unusual. She had future plans, conferences, field research, summer travel. She spoke to her mother the night before the hike. Her voice was excited, hopeful. She wasn't running from anything. This theory collapsed quickly. By late 1996, resources were quietly reassigned. The file grew dusty. Emily's parents kept pushing, but time erodes urgency. New cases replaced old ones. The forest reclaimed attention. Most people assumed Emily's remains would surface eventually. Bones uncovered by erosion. A backpack washed downstream. They didn't. While the world moved on, Emily was being kept somewhere. Not in the forest. Not in the park. Somewhere isolated. Hidden. A place where screams wouldn't carry. A place where time lost meaning. For nearly 3 years, she endured repeated physical trauma, starvation cycles, and medical-grade injuries that no animal could cause. She survived fractures that healed improperly. She lived long enough for bones to mend. She lived long enough for something far more disturbing, because whoever held her wasn't just keeping her alive, they were studying her. In early 1997, something changed. Emily died, but even then, her body was not discovered, not buried, not burned. It was preserved, prepared, and eventually displayed. On November 3, 1997, a group of amateur climbers ventured off a seldom used trail in a northern sector of the reserve. They were photographing old-growth redwoods, trees so massive they seemed unreal. One climber tilted his head back to frame a shot and froze. High above them, nearly 15 meters off the ground, hung a rectangular object secured to a thick horizontal branch. It was wooden. At first, the climbers thought it was a storage crate, then a bare box, then maybe some kind of old research equipment left behind decades ago. But the longer they stared, the clearer it became. This was not accidental. This was not natural. This was placed. The object hung suspended from a colossal redwood, its bark scarred, where a heavy industrial chain wrapped tightly around a massive horizontal limb. The box itself was roughly 2 meters long, narrow, and reinforced at the edges. Its proportions were unmistakable. It looked like a coffin. The climbers stood silently beneath it, necks craned upward, the forest unusually still. No birds, no wind, no sound except their own breathing. One of them whispered the thought none of them wanted to say out loud. There's no way that got there by accident. They used a satellite phone to contact park authorities. Within 2 hours, rangers arrived and sealed off the area. Given the height and instability of the tree, a specialist climber was brought in, someone trained to work on towers and high-risk structures. As he ascended, he noticed details that chilled him. The chain wasn't old. It hadn't rusted into the bark. It looked recent. When he reached the box, he pried open a narrow gap between the planks and shone his flashlight inside. What he saw made him descend immediately. He refused to say a word. He only told the rangers one thing: you need the police, and you need them now. By nightfall, the area was flooded with emergency lights. Forensic teams arrived. Medical examiners followed, using a system of pulleys and ropes. The coffin was carefully lowered to the forest floor. It weighed far more than expected. An empty box of that size should have weighed less than half. When the lid was pried open, there was no mistaking what lay inside. Human remains, clothed, positioned carefully, not dumped, not hidden, presented. Despite years of exposure, one item had survived remarkably well. A laminated ID card tucked inside a small pouch near the rib cage. The name read, Emily Carter, the missing hiker, gone for 3 years, presumed dead, found hanging from a tree. What investigators expected to find was decomposition, consistent with a death, shortly after disappearance. What they found instead rewrote the entire case. The skeletal remains showed multiple fractures, all occurring at different times. Some bones had healed, others had been rebroken. The right forearm showed 3 separate fracture events. The left arm showed 2. Several ribs bore clean fracture lines that had partially fused. The right tibia had healed incorrectly, bent, misaligned. This meant one thing: Emily had survived her injuries, repeatedly, for years. Then came the discovery that silenced the room. The pathologist noticed 3 small holes drilled into the temporal region of Emily's skull. Each hole measured roughly 5 millimeters in diameter, perfectly circular, clean-edged, surgical. There were signs of bone regeneration around the openings, which meant Emily was alive after the holes were made. For weeks, possibly months, experts could offer no medical justification, no treatment, no therapeutic reason, only intent. Cut marks were found across multiple bones, arms, legs, fingers. Some were shallow and precise, others deep and erratic. Several fingertips were missing, cleanly removed, not torn or crushed. There were no defensive wounds consistent with a sudden attack. Instead, the injuries told a story of control, of time, of someone who decided when pain would be inflicted and when it would stop. Based on bone density and mineral degradation, examiners estimated Emily's death occurred approximately 30 to 34 months after her disappearance. She did not die in the forest. She did not die quickly. She was kept alive, sustained, until she wasn't needed anymore. Perhaps the most unsettling detail was what Emily was wearing. Not her hiking gear, not anything sold in stores. She was dressed in a simple handmade dress, stitched together from mismatched fabric using different thread colors. No labels, no seams from industrial machines. On her feet were crude leather shoes, hand-sewn, moccasin-like. Everything about the clothing suggested long-term captivity. Someone had made these items for her. Someone had time. The box was constructed from locally sourced cedar, hand-cut and roughly assembled. No fingerprints, no DNA. The nails were common hardware store steel. The chain securing it to the tree had its serial numbers deliberately filed off. An arborist examined the tree. The chain had been placed no more than 3 weeks earlier, meaning the body had been stored elsewhere after death, then moved, then lifted, then displayed. This wasn't disposal. This was communication. Whoever did this wanted the body to be found, but not easily, not accidentally. They chose a place no one was meant to look, and yet, they placed it where eventually someone would. How does a single person lift a coffin weighing over 70 kilograms, 15 meters into the air, in a national park, without anyone noticing? The moment Emily Carter was identified, the case exploded back into life. What had once been a quiet missing person file became a multi-agency homicide investigation. Local law enforcement requested federal assistance. Within days, FBI profilers, forensic anthropologists, and behavioral analysts arrived at Redwood Crest. Everyone agreed on one thing. This was not a crime of impulse. This was planning stretched over years. The location of the coffin was deeply troubling. It wasn't near Emily's planned route. It wasn't accessible by vehicle. There were no marked trails within several kilometers. Whoever placed it there knew the forest intimately. They also knew how to move through it without leaving traces. Investigators determined that lifting the coffin required industrial-grade ropes or pulleys, knowledge of load-bearing branches, experience working at height. This eliminated casual hikers immediately. Everyone previously questioned was brought back. Again and again, Ridley's property was searched for a second time. This time, nothing was off-limits. Investigators found dozens of sharpened knives, hunting manuals, diagrams of animal skeletal structures, but no blood, no DNA, no fibers. His tools were clean. To clean. Still, nothing tied him directly to Emily. Holloway agreed to a voluntary polygraph. The results were inconclusive, not deceptive, not truthful, just unreadable. A search of his residence revealed detailed topographical maps of the park, handwritten journals documenting wildlife movement, a woodshop containing drills, saws, clamps. On paper, it all made sense. Rangers mapped terrain, woodworkers' own tools. Every test came back negative. Still, investigators couldn't shake the feeling that Holloway knew more than he admitted. A name emerged that hadn't been considered before. Lucas Brenner, a maintenance technician employed seasonally between 1995 and 1997. Brenner worked in infrastructure support. He had access to industrial climbing equipment, storage facilities, remote service routes. He quit abruptly 2 months before the coffin was discovered. Detectives tracked him to Oregon. He cooperated fully, provided DNA, submitted to a polygraph. No match. No deception detected. Another dead end. Forensic experts consulted with neurosurgeons and veterinarians. The drilled holes in Emily's skull were not random. They were placed with precision, not exploratory, not panicked, purposeful. This suggested someone with medical knowledge, veterinary experience, or advanced mechanical skill. Someone comfortable crossing the boundary between care and cruelty. FBI behavioral analysts compiled a profile based on injury patterns, disposal method, and psychological intent. The offender was likely male, between 35 and 55 years old, physically strong, highly organized, comfortable with isolation. He likely lived alone, possibly near but not inside the park. He needed a secure location to hold someone for years, access to tools, privacy. Most chilling of all, the display of the coffin suggested pride, a desire to be seen, not to taunt police, but to memorialize his work. There was no crime scene, no neighbors heard screams, no financial trail, no digital footprint. The crime existed outside society, beyond cameras, beyond witnesses, beyond noise. The forest had been used not as a weapon, but as camouflage. Investigators began comparing Emily's case to other unresolved disappearances across the Pacific Northwest. Over the previous 15 years, at least 9 women had vanished under similar circumstances. Solo hikers, experienced, no remains found. 3 had disappeared within protected wilderness areas. Patterns emerged, but patterns aren't proof. By mid-1999, despite tens of thousands of investigative hours, the case stalled. No arrests, no suspects charged, no closure. Emily's parents were finally able to bury her remains. The funeral drew hundreds, rangers, climbers, volunteers, strangers, people haunted by a question they would never answer. Who did this? And how did they vanish into the woods without a trace? Some profilers suggested the killer might already be dead, an accident, a suicide, an illness, a man whose secret died with him. Or worse, still alive, still walking the trails, blending in, watching. Years passed, then decades, but the forest where Emily Carter vanished never changed. The same trails, the same towering redwoods, the same silence that once hid a living human being for nearly 3 years. With no arrests and no confessions, the case splintered into competing explanations, none provable, all unsettling. One belief held that Emily encountered a traveler passing through the area, someone unregistered, someone transient, a man who abducted her, transported her far from the park, and kept her captive in a remote structure, a shed, a bunker, an abandoned farmhouse. This theory explained the lack of witnesses, but it failed to explain the coffin. Why bring her back? Why risk exposure? Another theory suggested a local, a man who lived on the fringe of society, someone who knew the terrain so well that he could disappear into it. Perhaps a former logger, a climber, a caretaker, someone who blended in because he belonged there. This theory explained the skills, the access, the silence, but not the precision of the injuries. The injuries told a clinical story: controlled trauma, survivable harm, repeated injury over time. Experts believed the perpetrator may have had veterinary training, medical experience, or mechanical expertise applied in a human context. Someone who understood anatomy, someone who knew exactly how far he could go and when to stop. One profiler offered a final thought that unsettled everyone involved. The coffin wasn't meant for the police. It wasn't meant for Emily's family. It was meant for him. A personal monument, a ritual ending, something to mark completion. Once it was hung, the killer was finished. And people who finish something important often leave, or stop. Investigators compared Emily's case to other unsolved disappearances. Similar patterns, similar victims, but without bodies. There was no proof, only suspicion. And suspicion can't put someone in prison. What makes Emily Carter's case unbearable isn't just the cruelty, it's the time. She was alive while the world searched for her. Alive while news segments declared her dead. Alive while her parents lit candles every anniversary. Alive somewhere close enough to trees that one day would hold her body. Advances in forensic genealogy have reopened countless cold cases, and periodically, detectives revisit Emily's file. They re-examine fibers. They reanalyze trace materials. They compare DNA to expanding databases. So far, nothing. Somewhere deep in Redwood Crest National Reserve, there is a tree older than most civilizations, a branch strong enough to hold a coffin, a place where no marker stands, no plaque, no warning, just bark scarred by a chain that once held a human life suspended in silence. Did the man who did this die without consequence? Or is he still out there, walking trails, passing hikers, smiling politely, knowing that for 3 years he owned someone's existence and was never caught. Emily Carter's story remains unsolved, a reminder that even in protected places, even in daylight, people can vanish, and sometimes the forest doesn't give them back.